Hey, how's it going? With Path of Exile 2 releasing in less than 12 hours, and the insanity we're already seeing from certain sections of the game industry, I wanted to make what is essentially a rant with my thoughts on how Path of Exile 2 is going to be received by the audience and the industry. That being, I believe Path of Exile 2 is going to break the games industry in half. It might sound a little over the top, but I do think that in the coming weeks, we're going to see more game developers and journalists come out of the woodwork to take shots at this developer in this game. And I can hear you asking, why would a game I'm hyped for receive backlash? And I should say I don't mean this in a universal sense. I think gamers will adore it. But what I've seen is that whenever a developer in this continuously rotting entertainment industry succeeds through player-first design, and when they choose to fairly monetize their game, the other developers that put your wallet in their sights instead of your fun, well, they start to get a little salty. They can't handle someone in the industry actually caring about the player and their time and succeeding in that. And that's because if grinding gear games succeed in making the best ARPG of all time, if they succeed in making the player base happy, if they accomplish innovation in the genre and create a masterpiece and then make that free, well, how the hell are the greedy developers going to survive? Honestly, grinding gear games, how can you put them out of work like that? It's actually insane that this is where our society is at. And we saw that now famously with our old mate Rod, a Diablo dev who felt so intimidated by an upcoming release that could compete with his own that he had to try and steal the spotlight. Rather pathetically. I actually hate this tweet so much. You just can't be happy for someone else and the community being hyped. You had to try and include your own creation. The reason roguelike is a term is because Rogue as a game was so genre defining that those that came after embraced that title out of respect. The reason Souls-like is a title is because, again, it's universally accepted what impact the Souls series has had in the industry, spawning a ton of copycats and system improvements to games over multiple genres. So what impact has Diablo had in recent years? $65 fucking horse cosmetics, an abysmal ARPG in Diablo 4, and an insanely immoral mobile game that was designed purely to bleed profits out of the player. I'd love to hear Rod describe what the Diablo formula is and see if there is anything of actual value left in there, since the original creators left. But that tweet's been bashed to death. The real reason I made this video is to highlight this disappointing pattern at a higher level, which is not just one dev, but a larger cohort of them. We saw this exact behavior with Baldur's Gate 3. All of these developers came crawling out of their dungeons, and they started crying about how Baldur's Gate was an anomaly, that it isn't normal, and that players shouldn't expect games of this caliber. Imagine telling gamers that they shouldn't expect quality in the products that they buy. From Software saw similar backlash following the release of Elden Ring. Again, the game development community complained about difficulty, about design, about UI. Devs from Ubisoft, for God's sake, Ubisoft of all people, were saying that Elden Ring's UI was bad. As if they have anything to say on UI design. I mean, what is this? No, actually, what is this, Ubisoft? But you're going to pick apart Elden Ring for its design? And it just keeps going, the complete lack of awareness. But it wasn't just them. Devs from Nix's Software and Guerrilla Games all expressed frustration that Elden Ring's Metacritic score hit 97. I can't imagine many other industries in which major players come out and actively bash each other, often with the support of the media, which we'll get into later. To me, I don't know, it seems simple. Maybe we should be celebrating when companies release stellar titles, encouraging others to do the same. It's all a symptom of a rotting industry. The games industry used to be collaborative, supportive. We had our stupid battles, Xbox versus PlayStation, console versus PC, but there was innovation across the industry as games took inspiration from one another. Modders turned ideas like Defense of the Ancients into massive franchises like Dota and League. These accomplishments were celebrated last decade, in the years before. Big game releases would hit the market and everyone would celebrate their accomplishments. Now we have the big AAA studios shoveling half-baked ideas into rusted IPs, underworking them while spending twice the development budget on marketing, and on system designs that are focused on trapping the player in small gameplay circles to maximize spending, ensuring that past features are now blocked behind paywalls, and calling the players bigots when their underworked trash doesn't land well. And worse yet, the media doubles down. Games journalists, for some godforsaken reason, sold out, and have become slaves to access journalism. That is, giving nothing but favourable content to large developers to ensure they continue to get early access to information so they can be the first to report and make their ad revenue. They don't call out their bullshit, because if they do, they won't get contacted in the future, and after enough of them cave to this system, enough follow that all of that integrity is now dead in the water. And then we have grinding gear games, blasting through the doors to throw it all on the table, and they're throwing down an absolute hog in this dick measuring contest. And understandably, those on the smaller side are starting to panic that they're being exposed. Diablo 4 came out and has been endlessly memed. Time after time, they are given chance to patch that into a playable state, and here we are. It's playable, sure, arguably a better game for the beyond casual audience in some aspects, but you can appeal to both, and they chose not to. Because that isn't their goal, is it? Was their goal really to make the most basic level systems imaginable, to fail to innovate? No, they followed that path because they were scared of ruining the cash cow. They're not trying to make a better game. They're not pushing themselves to make a genre-defining game to get that Diablo-like title that is going to go down in history next to the "you guys have phones, right?" comment. They gave us 5 classes, 6 if you count the DLC, which costs more than most games, a handful of skills, and an uninspired endgame system with very little player interaction or expression. Grinding Gear Games, on the other hand, have redefined their combat system, overhauled their items, committed to 12 character classes, all with 3 ascendancies that are basically the same depth as an entire D4 character on their own, and then you throw in deep endgame systems, chase items, a player-driven economy, and pinnacle challenges. Multiple pinnacle challenges, I should highlight, not a single Uber version of a past boss. Path of Exile 2 has been an incredible development cycle to watch, seeing them add systems over time, refine them based on player feedback, and actively work to solve problems identified in the first game. Now, I didn't make this video to bash Blizzard. They did put themselves out there to be bashed, but the issue is wider. All of these companies that are now shooting themselves in the foot were once beloved, treasured developers that brought us insane games, but they all got bought out over time by large corporate interests, and they don't put their players first. Grinding Gear Games do. They put the player at the center of all they do, and I think most importantly, they play their games. We heard from Jonathan in the recent IGN interviews released that he plays Path of Exile 2 every single night, to playtest, to improve. In every interview I've watched, which is at a lot at this point, Jonathan is always giving deep, meaningful insights into systems design. Grinding Gear Games take feedback, consider it, discuss it, and if it is valuable, they act on it. I can't imagine any other development team that does this outside of Larian Studios. 2 companies that actively involve their players in designing their games, and who would have thought they've turned out to be insane in scope, quality, and value to you. Meanwhile, many of these large AAA devs are just churning out content. They've lost the focus on improvement, instead thinking that if they just nail that live service formula, they'll be the next PUBG, Dota, or Fortnite. This is why I love Grinding Gear Games. You watch interviews with Jonathan, Chris, Mark, and Robert, and every time you see the interest in their eyes. They know that they're building a masterpiece, and even so, they're still committed to letting players keep cosmetics between games. Can you imagine a world in which any other developer would do that? They have the option to resell their MTX, and they chose to give themselves more work just to give those committed fans even more value. They are transparent and committed to your enjoyment openly. They don't just pretend that's the case while talking to you by the campfire. I believe Path of Exile 2 is going to pop off and will be a 10 out of 10 by the time it hits full release. I think most of you watching likely agree with that statement, but I'm certain that in the next few weeks, you're going to see salty devs, envious about what they could be doing if they'd only signed up to be part of a decent team. And for many, that envy is going to turn to hate, and they're going to tweet about it. They will play the game, deep down, they'll know they like it, but they will find any small, arguable system and base their entire dislike of the game on it. But we can at least say, Rod seems to have learned his lesson. Will the others? Thanks for checking out this video. By the time you're watching this, Path of Exile 2 will have released for many of you. I hope you're having an insane time. I'll be streaming Path of Exile 2 right here on YouTube and Twitch, bang on its release time. Otherwise, I stream every Tuesday and Thursday, 4 PM Australian Western Standard Time. Drop in anytime. I'll be continuing to make more PoE 2 content post-release and for the foreseeable future. This game looks to be one of the biggest moments in gaming, and I can't wait to take part in that with you. If you want to support the channel, throw a like on the video, sub if you want to see more, but you being here, that's what really matters. Have a great one, guys, and I'll see you in raid class. Cheers.